Bruxelles,
Paris, Madrid.
The days of spies in trench coats and dark glasses, hiding behind newspapers to eavesdrop on people, is gone. Human intelligence has of course not disappeared, but technology has greatly enhanced it. James Bond may have some cool gadgets, but the name's bot is the new trend. In this episode, we will take a look at the Secret Service in the 21st century and beyond. We wonder what role European intelligence services play in today's ever-changing world and how they'll adapt to new challenges. The rise of the cyber era, with its global data flows and reliance on the internet and smartphones, has enabled intelligence agencies get faster and more efficient. They can now swiftly find patterns, correlations and insights by gathering and analyzing massive amounts of data collected through satellites, online communications or surveillance feeds. No surprise why all the major powers, from China to Russia and the United States, are upping their investment in cyber and AI for everything intelligence. Modern technology has made it hard to tell the difference between collecting information and having an impact on things. Or to put it in another way, the line between just watching what's going on and actually changing it. This is where we enter the world of hybrid warfare, which I have often talked about in this podcast, with a systematic pattern of malicious behavior that includes things like intelligence gathering, disinformation, cyber attack, sabotage, and covert political influence. As we said last week, this is a war in which Europe is already well and truly involved. In fact, although these threats are not entirely new, today's connected world is making them easier, more efficient, and more effective. Digitization and AI are significantly increasing the capacity of malicious individuals to cause harm, confirms Ramón Rico, a Spanish cybersecurity expert.
Now, in mere seconds and on a massive scale, a person with even just a little knowledge can, for example, analyze military data, generate fake news, or launch a propaganda campaign with manipulated videos or messages targeted at very specific groups. In the end, a good way to look at it is that AI doesn't decide to attack per se, but it makes attacks easier and faster to carry out.
And it's not just the methods that are changing. The mix of people involved is evolving too. These days, even your neighbor could be a spy. Russian and Chinese intelligence services are using social media and sites like LinkedIn to recruit regular people. They offer attractive salaries for tasks that seem simple at first, but then they start asking for confidential information. These methods often involve deception and taking advantage of people's personal vulnerabilities, like financial need or family ties. Watchdogs like ENISA, the EU cybersecurity agency, have pointed out that there are criminals' networks involved too. It has also been revealed that Russian state services have been hiring people to carry out one-off acts of sabotage, like arson or physical surveillance. Often, the operative doesn't even realize they're working for a foreign state, which makes it even more difficult to trace the origin of these actions. At the same time, of course, sympathizers are also being actively recruited. Many populist and far-right parties across the EU are up to something called cognitive warfare. This is a technique that uses scientifically tailored disinformation and propaganda to mess with people thinking. It uses technologies that can influence a person's short-term attention and reactions, as well as long-term thinking, and is designed to sow fear, increase social divisions, and weaken institutions. Meanwhile, cybercrime has reached unprecedented levels. In the EU, almost half of these crimes are about the availability of a system or service. All these activities, whether they are state-sponsored or not, often peak in the run-up to elections or political events, and this has been dubbed fakeactivism, and they do not fail to sow discord, mistrust and divisions. As we discussed last week, when combined with AI tools, satellites also play a key role in gathering intelligence, in particular on military capabilities and movements. and identifying agents all over the world. But when you add in open source intelligence, which uses social media and online databases to detect in the noise, the capabilities of modern intelligence gatherings are pretty much endless. Recognizing the power of such tools, Europe is rushing to find ways to counter them, because we cannot afford to fall behind. The ever-increasing automation, industrialization and convergence of malicious activity will continue to test Europe's collective resilience. But since the end of World War II, we have been able to rely on the United States' superior intelligence capabilities as allies under the NATO umbrella, right?
The role of the United States is, as in the other dimension of European defense, truly essential. This is because the Americans have the most significant capacity to gather intelligence. Let me give you the clearest example, once again related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Americans knew roughly 2 months, if not even earlier, before the invasion that Putin would give the order to invade Ukraine. Many European states viewed the American position and this American input with skepticism, but they have by far the most sophisticated intelligence structure in the world, far surpassing that of other states.
That was Teodor Moga, who teaches at Romania's Alexandru Ioan Cuza University of Iași. He goes on to say, though, that this easy flow of strategic information between Washington and Europe's capitals is now being called into question.
Naturally, as in security and defense matters, Europeans have cooperated very closely with America over the years in sharing intelligence. But this is something that can no longer be taken for granted, since, under the Trump administration, as you know, the functioning of transatlantic security and defense has come under pressure. The same goes for the transatlantic intelligence community.
If transatlantic political ties get even weaker, Europe might end up with major intelligence gaps, maybe even at the worst possible time. As member states start beefing up their secret services, Brussels is shifting its focus towards boosting collaboration between the states, the European institutions and the private industry. And data is one of those things where we are heavily dependent on American tech. And in intelligence, it's all about data and data-related services. Even the French Secret Service, the DGSE, is dependent on them. Last year, it renewed its contract with the US company Palantir, which provides the DGSO with data analysis platforms and ongoing expertise, because there isn't a local or EU solution that can process the vast quantities of data required for its operations. Most EU data is stored outside Europe, with Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud holding almost 70% of the European cloud infrastructure market together. And the same goes with computing power, data centers, AI infrastructure, and so on. This is why many European experts and observers are calling for reducing the EU's dependence on other countries in a strategic and smart way. But Europe cannot copy everything the US does, so it'll have to pick areas where it's both really important to be independent and in its reach. And obviously, finding the right balance is tricky, given how deep this dependency runs. The EU has indeed some tough choices to make when it comes to tech sovereignty. A couple of weeks ago, it has tabled a package that aims to do just that, reducing dependence on foreign providers and building specific European capabilities in cloud and AI, in open source software, data infrastructure and chips. These choices will have to be accompanied by further debates on privacy, democratic oversight and accountability, which we, as Europeans, believe are too important to be ignored. The bloc should work together more and share more information, as well as build up skills and capabilities. But working together and sharing information depends on trust, which can be tricky, even among EU countries. So says the Director General of Lithuania's Department of State Security, Gediminas Grina.
This is a really sensitive topic here, sharing. Sharing means, first of all, trust. No political will, no agreements will force secret services to share something with someone. It has never been like this, and it never will be like this. This means that everything depends on how much one service trusts another service.
And dealing with double agents makes things even more complicated. I'm talking here about EU countries that have sympathies with Russia, such as Hungary and Slovakia. It was revealed that Hungary's outgoing foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, has been sharing confidential EU-related intelligence with Moscow. So it's pretty clear that this kind of foreign snooping is a major obstacle to the bloc's ambitions to develop a common intelligence and security strategy. And well, another thing that makes it tricky to work together more in the EU is that member states don't want to hand over some of their power to a supranational body. So it looks like a joint European intelligence service will never be on the cards. Fernando Negrão, a former Portuguese justice minister and former national director of the judicial police, is convinced that this is really the only way forward.
I see this as a necessity for the European Union, to have a single EU intelligence agency for information and intelligence. We do not hear about this for one reason, because the issue of trust is fundamental when we talk about bodies that work with information. In the EU, we are talking about different cultures in different countries, about the fact that national security is a sovereign competence of each country. There is still no structure that unifies the work of gathering and exchanging analysis, exchanging information, which means that there is no agency that carries out this consolidation and exchange of information between European Union countries. And it is extremely urgent.
Having said that, there are a couple of organizations that could help get everyone working together at EU level. Vasile Dinku, member of the Socialist Group and vice chair of the Special Committee on the European Democracy Shield, says one such is EU INSEN, the European Union Intelligence Center.
At the moment, we have a few structures that are already up and running. For example, within the Strategic Analysis Center EU INTCEN, a common analysis framework has been created, comprising joint analytical products, regular briefings that we deliver in Parliament, and hearings. Member states are participating, not all to the same degree, of course, but it can serve as a starting point. We have also established common standards for information classification and sharing, a unified labeling protocol, and a mandatory minimum level of sharing for hybrid threats.
Dinku adds that there are also initiatives in place in the field of disinformation, among others. Basically, instead of creating one big super agency, which would definitely be met with resistance from European capitals, we should focus on strengthening the EU-level coordination bodies like EU INSEN. While national intelligence agencies would carry on doing most intelligence activities, these bodies would improve EU-level coordination and make it easier to share information. So a joint analysis center that's less dependent on US contribution could emerge. Best of all, this would also let member states see where they need to improve and put money into new skills, especially ones to do with satellites and cyberspace. That way, they could step up space surveillance, spot threats faster, and get more signals intelligence, something the EU is pretty poor at right now. Like it or not, knows Triatanfilos Karatrandros, a senior research fellow at ELIAMEP. This is the only way forward.
I must say that there is no longer any possibility of not moving in this direction. It is an operational necessity, but also, as is evident from the latest Eurobarometer, citizens themselves are feeling more insecure, stating that the European Union needs to do more together, within a common framework, in order to manage this situation. When facing threats such as Russia's hybrid operations or international terrorism, hiding behind the possession of information and assuming you have the full picture is usually a recipe for failure.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure when greater European integration in such sensitive areas may be achieved. But with Europe being put to the test, some barriers are coming down. If they could get on board with a shared sense of destiny and identity, it could encourage European governments to start working together as soon as possible. Many thanks to Jean-Claude from Luxembourg's Radio 100.7, Aitana from Es Radio Castilla y León, Radoslav from Bulgarian National Radio, Timo from Kuku Radio in Estonia, Horia from Radio Romania, Augustia from Lithuania's Žinių radijas, Nikos and Mariana from Sky Radio in Greece, and Alejandre and Pedro from Renascença in Portugal. Wojciech from the podcast The Europeans Checked My Script, and Monica edited this podcast. Thank you for your precious work and collaboration. Next week, we're going to be looking at intelligence and spies. Make sure to listen.